It doesn't matter what hobby are you into or what kind of entertainment interests you the most. It's always important to get out of your safe zone every now and then. If there is something video games has taught me, is that if my favorite studios and publishers aren't going to give me what I'm looking for, then I will simply seek greener pasture somewhere else. I say this because my recent binge of boomer shooters has led me to Sprawl, a game that many have described as a mix of Titanfall's fast-paced wall-running shooting and Modern Doom's risk-reward system. A game that also ended up surprising me on a number of levels, no pun intended. But of course, before I start singing my praises, let's cover the basics. In Sprawl, we play as Seven, a former Black Ops operative living in exile from the titular Sprawl city. Her exile being interrupted when the government sent Six, a member of her former team, to kill her. But she survives the encounter thanks to a mysterious contact named Father, and now with his guidance, she has to make her way back into the city to get back at the government for trying to kill her and stop a plan to wipe out what little is left of the human population. And that's about it, at least for now. My first surprise about this game was coming to find out this isn't just a boomer shooter. It's one that also happens to be in the cyberpunk genre. My second surprise is getting to see a game with this movement system is set in the most grounded part of the setting. For all the cybernetic factories and neon-tinted strongholds, the game also features a fair bit of more grounded slums and streets, making it clear that this used to be a world where people lived in relatively normal lives, before the dystopian government tore everything apart. And the third surprise is how this game tackles the risk-reward of an aggressive gameplay. See, one of the bigger trappings of first-person shooters is how, regardless of the genre, basic guns like the starter pistol and the SMG get eventually phased out in favor of heavy hitters like shotguns, assault and sniper rifles. Part of it is of course to show the progression of the game and the danger enemies represent as the conflict and difficulty escalate. Not in this game. While you do start only with your pistol and you start growing your arsenal from there as you progress through the campaign, the pistol never stops being important to the combat. In fact, no gun is better than the other, so you can't rely on a dominant strategy, something I heard was lifted from Doom Eternal and it annoyed a number of people. And while it did annoy me at first, once I got a handle on the combat and the fact my enemies are cyborgs, I started to realize what the game systems are doing here with one word: headshots. The risk-reward system in this game's aggressive combat depends a great deal on how good you are at decapitating your enemies, either with a slash from your melee attack or blowing it to chunks with a headshot. Killing enemies like these has them drop the tip pillars that fuel the high-octane combat. First is the health, the reward to your risk, because even if you are constantly strafing, moving and dodging, stray bullets and a well-placed explosion can still get you and chip away at your health. Risking a headshot, then circling around your enemies to collect that health, keeps you alive and ready to keep taking a risk at your enemies. The second pillar is of course the ammo. Rather than let you carry enough lead to just keep holding the fire button, your ammo is limited and will tend to dry up fast. So the headshot system encourages accuracy so you can keep your guns full and keep piling up enemies' corpses. Bonus points for enemies having specific classes that only drop specific ammo, so you can focus your fire if you are trying to refill a specific gun. And last but not least, the third pillar is adrenaline, aka bullet time. Surprisingly, one of the more useful incarnations of the mechanic, as it comes with multiple functions. First, the most basic of course, allowing you for more precise shooting. After all, it's a bit harder to land headshots when you are trying not to be turned into a low-budget SpongeBob cosplayer. The second one is that it highlights the weak spots of enemies, usually the heads. It sounds redundant, but trust me, when you are crowded by enemies, you want to see where their heads are so you can start hunting them. It also highlights cables to switches and generators, acting like a bit of signposting for you to get you in the right direction. And of course, replenishing it constantly in the middle of combat means you can turn enemies' heads into pumpkin pie before their bodies even hit the floor.
Access wrong.
I call these pillars because the risk part of the risk-reward system is very important to keep in mind. The main reason why the arenas in this game allow for so much freedom of movement is because it wants you on the move if you want to stay alive. Staying still for more than 2 seconds, even if you think you can land a headshot safer that way, guarantees you will drop dead and hear the dreadful voice of your inner computer declaring a system error to your lifeless corpse. This is the main reason the game surprised me so much. I already love boomer shooters as it is, but the combat in this one has such a fun skill ceiling that it really does give a sense of mastery as you get a hang of the main systems and start to truly feel like a Black Ops cyber specialist. So you can go from dying a lot and getting frustrated on the early arenas to start feeling like a real badass once the later levels crank up the challenge. And even though you can still die, and I did die a lot there, it feels more like it was your fault and not the game pulling a fast one on you. With that being said, the headshot system is a bit more complicated than simply popping heads. Early game will give you basic soldiers that go down with a single shot if you aim well, but from then onwards, every other enemy class can tank a lot more damage. While you can technically just unload a pistol on them, you will run out of ammo fast before you can clear the room. So what you want to do is synergize your arsenal. Depending on what kind of enemies you have in front of you, you can chip away at bigger enemies to weaken them, then switch to a better gun to finish them off, like say using a pistol or the SMG, then when the enemy gets a bit staggered you switch to the shotgun to turn them into chunks. The inverse is also possible. You can find yourself against mecha robots equipped with grenade launchers and machine guns. You can either spend precious ammo from your grenade launcher to take them down, or you can get close to them so you can trick them into using their grenade launchers, switching to the SMG and shooting them midair so the robot dies to its own explosions. There's even scenarios where you can use those explosions in your favor for some crowd control. Other times you can find a tough battle ahead of you and start picking off enemies from a distance with a railgun before they start homing in on you. Or in the other times you can find yourself swarmed with enemies, so you want to use a minigun or a grenade launcher to thin out the weaker enemies, so you can then switch to your other stuff and deal with the tougher ones proper. So no matter what happens, every combat scenario requires you to be both a quick thinker and also have the twitch reflexes to mow down your enemies before they get a chance to get you. That's why I say the more you get the hang of the combat, you get to feel a sense of mastery over the game. But it's not without flaws, of course. Like I said, some combat arenas can be fairly lengthy depending on how fast you are killing your enemies. In some cases, these fights can be a bit longer than usual, and if you end up making a mistake towards the end, you can end up dead and having to start a fight all over again. Understandable given the game's difficulty curve, but no less annoying, even if that death was likely your own fault. For as amazing as the movement system is, and I'm gonna rave about it in a moment, the boss fights in this game were a bit of a letdown. There's only 3 bosses in this game, and well, one of them was a bit more fun, the others not so much. Boss fights are usually a test of your skills and a way to get a climax to your adventure. One of the bosses had me running in circles around it for minutes trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. Basically, gotta hit them on the weak spot for massive damage. The problem is, all you gotta do is circle it because it's always trying to turn around to hit you, making the battle a little monotonous even if you figure out what you were meant to do, and by then the boss is already running out of lines and looping them. It just feels like these could have been a lot better, but I guess they're not too much of a hassle since there is only 3 of them, so not much is lost by fighting them. Other than that, this game has some fantastic pacing. You don't want to have gunfights all the time, especially not if the game is lengthy. So in order to pace things out and let players digest the adrenaline rush they went through, the game gives you quiet time in the form of parkour and platforming segments. The wall running is as simple as it gets. Just look at the wall while you jump at it and you go. To prevent you from accidentally wall running into the ceiling, they made gravity important. You go down pretty fast, but you can give yourself a little boost by jumping up to 2 times. This means you have to be smart while doing the platforming and makes the movement system a lot more fluid. And it turns out there is depth to that flow. Among the more iconic staples of the boomer shooter genre, there is the rocket jump. For this game, there is the shotgun jump. The shotgun in this game quickly became one of my favorites, not only because it packs a punch and turns enemy into chunky cubes, but also because I discovered that you can use its insane recoil as an improvised double jump. I missed it entirely during my first playthrough, and it blew my mind when I finally started getting it into action during the game's little time trial mode, where you can run an obstacle course as fast as you can. It's insanely awesome, and it even made me start using it when I went for the collectibles on my second playthrough. But I did say the game gives you quiet time, didn't I? Sometimes you won't even need to parkour or platform. All you need to do is have a little walk and take in the environment. And that itself is a treat, because I seriously love the environment in this game. The world in Sprawl is the world of Ghost in the Shell, taken to its natural conclusion. Seven might as well be Major Kusanagi's cousin, because not only does she wage a one-woman war against the system that created her, she even fights the man who tried to kill her in a water canal. Despite the high-octane combat, there is a poignant tone to the story, the world, and even the soundtrack. When I say this is the natural conclusion of a cyberpunk world like Ghost in the Shell, I mean one where there is barely any life left in it. The number of military cyborgs and the suppression of any dissent has left the world in ruins. What little humans are left are hiding out of sight from our bloody battlefield, so if Seven wants to have a shot at giving this world a surviving chance, she has to end it. Because as Father himself puts it, if she doesn't stop the production of more military cyborgs and take down the leadership, eventually not even she will be able to stop it. It may sound like I am overhyping things a bit, and maybe I am. After all, most of the story is flavor being told to you via Father's exposition, since Seven is silent. But what can I say? I am a sucker for great art direction and environmental storytelling. I didn't even need fancy ray tracing or computer melting AK textures to feel immersed in this world, to feel like indeed people used to live here. It goes without saying, but I love this game, and if you enjoy fast-paced awesome shooters, this game is definitely for you. The shooting feels extremely good once you get the hang of things, and the learning curve was great. I know there's a fair bit of frustration with having to play a certain way because of the gameplay systems, especially coming from something like Doom Eternal, but for me, this made for a nice change of pace. Having variety is good, that's how genres break down into subgenres. It is that weird little mutation that happens often in video games, where no matter what happens, there's always a new experience. And if you dive in with an open mind, the wealth of great games you can find can be nearly infinite.